What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only SPY, the Nasdaq, the QQQs, and the indices. Break down what the charts are telling us and what you should be watching for tomorrow, and why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely massive day that will either cause the market to continue to rally or even crash very, very hard in a very short period of time. So I'm going to break down what's likely going to happen, what Jerome Powell is likely going to say, and what could end up playing out for the stock market. Now, before I break anything down about this, though, before I get into any more details about why tomorrow is going to be massive, I have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks, and 5 out of those 7 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 10 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. I'm actually recording this a couple of minutes before the market will actually close, and so far SPY is continuing to pump. The market pumped pretty nicely. Tesla's up 7%, AMC's up 3%, Nvidia's up almost 2%, NEO is up 6%. I mean, the market's just continuing to rip to the moon. Amazon's up over 3%. It's just incredible to witness. But the real question is, will the market continue to rip like this tomorrow? What's happening tomorrow? Why is it such an impactful and important day? Well, tomorrow at about 1 o'clock p.m., the Fed interest rate hike decision is going to be coming out. The odds heavily favor a 25 basis point rate hike, based off the data from CME Group and also based off previous projections. I really believe that 50 basis points is very unlikely. If we get 50 basis points, once again, it's extremely unlikely, but if that happens, the entire stock market's going to crash hard, very fast. I don't really think that's going to happen, though. Like I said, I think that's extremely unlikely. And on top of that, I just want to note that if the Fed ends up pausing, if the Fed pauses, the stock market's going to rally. We're going to get another rally that continues. Do I think the Fed is going to pause? I also think that's pretty unlikely. And I say that because the Fed has been increasing their balance sheet once again, continuing to ease up on policy, at least to some degree. I believe that this is most likely going to be transitory. I think the Fed is not going to be able to do this for too much longer because they're risking higher inflation. They're willing to take the risk, though, to help out the banks. That's the risk the Fed is willing to take. But in doing so, they have to consider the fact that inflation was not good. A lot of the reports were still hot, from the PCE to also the CPI. Only the latest PPI wasn't that bad, but everything else was still relatively high. Year over year, CPI was up over 6%. It's nowhere near the Fed's 2% target. So the Fed is likely going to have to continue raising rates, and that's why I believe we're most likely going to see 25 basis points. How is this going to affect the market? I believe that it's not going to be too bad. I think the market was kind of expecting this. This would not be too much of a surprise. But the bigger question is, what is the Fed going to say about the future? Is the Fed going to continue to raise rates aggressively? Is the Fed going to pause in the future? What is the Fed's, GDP target? What is the Fed's terminal rate hike projection? That's what's going to be very important. That's why tomorrow is going to be massive. Because if the Fed makes it clear they're going to keep on raising rates over and over again, they don't even hint at a pause, that could also tank the markets, because what's happening is we're seeing a banking crisis right now. There is a risk of bank run. I know people like Elon Musk are saying that the Fed needs to essentially cut rates now. I find myself in disagreement. I don't think it's time yet. But the bottom line is, going into long term, he is still seeing, some dire things that are playing out that are going to get worse. So he knows that the landing's not going to be, soft, if anything. And SPY is now hitting almost 399. Look at this thing go. In my opinion, seeing the market pump like this, I just want everyone to be very cautious. Be very careful. I don't know what's going to happen exactly. I really don't know. It depends on the data. It depends on the Fed. But seeing how we're pumping, the first thing I'll tell you is, from a Wyckoffean standpoint, You could argue this is like kind of like a cup and handle. Also, this is like a Wyckoff schematic number two. This would be like an accumulation schematic from here. This suggests that SPY would get to about 400. And I could actually see that happen maybe by tomorrow. We might see this thing approach 400. And as it approaches 400, I just want to note that we've got to be careful because I don't know what's going to happen after that. Because what I'm thinking is I think the market's going to try to continue to rally, and then we're going to get to the big rate hike decision. I know I was supposed to mention this before, but what comes first at 1 p.m. is the rate hike decision. Then 30 minutes later, at 1:30 p.m., we have the FOMC press conference. That's when Jerome Powell is going to start talking, right? And my best guess would be the market might continue to hold up, maybe even rally a bit as we get very close to the rate hike decision. And then maybe SPY's at 400. I don't know if we're going to just hold that level or even like start crashing after 1 p.m. I don't really know. But my best guess is we're probably just going to hold up okay. It won't drop too hard. I think there's going to be lots of volatility during this time at 1 o'clock p.m. when the decision comes out. The market's going to swing back and forth, but overall, it's not going to like crash too hard. And then I'm thinking that the market's just going to get ready for the press conference. And that's where I really have no way of knowing what Powell's going to say. I don't know if the guy is going to cause the market to rally. I don't know if he's going to cause us to crash like really hard. I don't know. That's why, in some essence, just trying to bet on things is kind of like gambling at this point because we just don't know what Powell's going to say. For that reason, be very careful. The market's going to go crazy at 1:30 p.m. especially. So what am I seeing? Once again, we're bullish. We may even get close to like 400 today. Wow, that's pretty funny. At the time I was recording this, we weren't actually like there, but we're getting very close to it, like I just said. I just want to note to everyone, our major resistance is here between 400 and 401. Make sure you watch that carefully. We're getting very close to it. That's pretty funny. I'm actually watching this in real time. I'm actually recording this about 15 minutes before the market closes. So what's happening for tomorrow? I'm anticipating us to come here all the way up to 400 to 401 maybe. I do think the market's going to start trading a little sideways once we get the rate hike decision. The market's going to turn more sideways, maybe push up more. Who knows? It really depends on the decision and how the market interprets it. But then whether we keep going or not is going to depend on the FOMC, meaning what Powell says. One thing that's not good for bulls is we do have a possible head and shoulders developing here. I don't want to draw out the lines, like way too many lines to make this too complicated, but you could see this is looking like a left shoulder. This is looking like a head. And then this could be like a slanted, the overall neckline and etc. could be slanted. So the whole head and shoulders formation could be slanted. And overall, we could be forming like a right shoulder right here. Right? This could be forming a right shoulder. Very possible. And if that's the case, SPY would have to break 400 to 401, and then it would have to pump to about 407, maybe a little higher because this is slanted a little bit. And then it pumps all the way up to these like 401 area. And this will be valid as long as we don't break the highs we made back in like February. And then after that, if we fail at that level, we might just see a big crash. Why would we crash? Because of the banking crisis, the Fed raising rates, CPI. CPI might be a little hot for the month of March because of the Fed. Once again, they're printing more money. May not be as good as what people are expecting. There's so many different factors that could affect us. Once again, guys, I give you guys like my projection on SPY. You could translate this for the majority of the market. I just think the market's going to hold up for tomorrow for the majority of the day. Amazon has this gap up here if it does break higher levels. Amazon also could be forming a giant head and shoulder, so I'd be very careful with it. But overall, it's holding up quite nicely. It might keep going. If it keeps going, make sure you watch 105. I just want to note that be prepared for anything. I think the market's going to try to pump as we approach the rate hike decision. And whether the pump continues or not depends on the Fed. Same thing for Tesla. Things up over 7% after the big news. Tesla is now considered a blue chip stock. We also had some good reviews and expectations from Wall Street analysts. Overall, holding up nicely. It is testing this resistance zone right here, trying to break it. If it breaks, the 200 EMA is at 210. I'm not going to say Tesla's going to get up there. We first have to break these levels. We also have to wait for the Fed, but overall, it's looking pretty nice. NVIDIA, this thing is possibly in a topping process. It hasn't been able to break 264 just yet. Honestly, it just depends on the Fed. The Fed could pump this thing. The Fed could crash this thing. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm expecting it to stay between 259 to 264, at least for the time being. NEO is pushing nicely. It's up over almost 6%. I told you all to watch 9.37 yesterday, and that's exactly where the top happens to be for today. If anything, it all depends on the Fed, and NEO has many gaps below, but at the same time, it also has potential to retest 9.7 or even 10. All depends on the Fed. Once again, Apple depends on the Fed. 160, it's a possibility. We could even break it, but one thing that's a little bit concerning on the hourly is we are forming a rising wedge-like formation. This could be invalidated by the Fed, or it may not be. Right? There are like two ways you could interpret this. I'd be very careful on Apple because of this. Triple Q, and I'm just going to end the video from here. I don't want to make this too long. I do have a lot of things coming up in a couple of hours. We have a bullish triangle-like structure right here. QQQ looks like it might try to, if it holds 310, it has the potential to hit 313-ish tomorrow. I don't know how much higher it's going to break. It's going to depend on the Fed, of course. If we're bearish, make sure you watch 309 and 306 on this thing. And there's also a gap all the way down to this 306, almost like really high 305s. It really depends on the Fed. There's not much else I could say about that. VIX is down pretty hard. It's down over 10%. When the VIX drops this hard, we tend to see a rebound the next day. Technicals don't matter as much, though. Once again, depends on FOMC. We'll just have to wait and see. This thing is getting very close to 20 flat. That's the next important level, which tells me the market might pump up a little bit more as we approach the rate hike decision. But then after that, not much else I could say. Google's doing amazing. This thing's almost at 105. If it breaks 105, it has the potential to fly all the way up to about 109, I believe was the zone I was looking at. It has a lot of potential. We'll see how much higher it goes. 10-year Treasury yield up 3.59%. There are a lot of gaps down here. We might start to see the yields come down. If it depends on the Fed, it's just waiting for the Fed to make an announcement, and the yield might come down. If that happens, that could be bullish for the stock market. We also have this double gap right here. All right, we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Don't want to make this video too long. I know I kind of repeated myself a lot. Some of the things I'm saying are quite redundant, but what goes, goes, and please be very cautious tomorrow. Yes, we may continue to pump as we approach the meeting, but everything could change in the blink of an eye depending on what Jerome Powell says. So expect crazy volatility starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for listening. The market to the moon because the long term is still very bright, and peace out.